Hello and welcome to hankgames Without Hank. My name is John Green, manager of the AFC Wimbledon Wimbly Womblys, today taking on Leeds United in the championship. In our last episode, I said that with 2 games left in the season, we were now guaranteed to be going to the playoffs for a spot. There will be 4 teams vying for the chance to go to the Premier League. That was wrong. As you can see, currently we are only 3 points clear in the playoff race. So we do have to win at least one of these last 2 games and draw the other one by my count, or we could win them both. Or the team that's currently sitting on 72 points, one of the teams below us could lose. But basically, just for the sake of clarity, I would like to win this game so that I don't have to stress out very much about the last game, hopefully. Today I want to talk about... well, I'll read you the topic that I got. It was as follows. Can you talk about why or how reading and consuming media changes the way you make art? Like in your case, we can tell you watched Zay, Frank, and read David Foster Wallace, which you probably can tell. So there's this famous book about literature by literary critic, professor of English named Harold Bloom called The Anxiety of Influence, where he talks about the way that different writers have influenced each other and the way that influence works in literature. Now, obviously, I am not a great writer or anything. I don't labor under the delusion that I am, but I do try to write the best books that I'm able to write within the limits of my talent, and I try to write books that stand up to critical reading and that can be, rewarding for the people who like them, whether they're reading for the first time or rereading them. That's definitely my goal as a writer. Whether I'm able to achieve that is a separate question, of course, but that's my goal as a writer. My goals as a video blogger are probably a little bit different, since one of my goals is to make a video every Tuesday and not get punished. But I do, I also try to make good YouTube videos. But it's given me 2 different models of influence. The difference between how I feel about writing and how I feel about video blogging has given me these 2 sort of different ways of thinking about influence. Because in the case of writing, I want to be very careful not to imitate anyone. Influence isn't the same as imitation, right? And imitation, to me anyway, always feels limited. For a long time, I felt like I was imitating writers when I was writing, and that was one of the reasons I felt like my writing wasn't ultimately that good. And I am, obviously deeply influenced by the stuff that I read. As a writer, I am. And I think, you can tell that I'm sure you can tell that I've read David Foster Wallace. You can certainly tell that I've read J.D. Salinger. I think there's a lot of other writers who, in terms of the way I think about structure and stuff, you can see in my books. But, goodness gracious, that should have been a goal. Oh, man, and then wild shot with what can only be categorized as a wild shot. So I never really... It was only... When I was... Sorry, that started this thought 6 different times. When I was a senior in college, I read this great book of letters back and forth between Shelby Foote and Walker Percy, these 2 Southern writers who I liked a lot, who were very influential in my thinking about the South. Along with writers like Flannery O'Connor and Zora Neale Hurston, really deeply influenced the way I feel about Southernness, I guess. What? Oh, it's fantastic! What a finish, and then a beautiful dance from Dicko. Dicko, 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 Dicko. Near post finish, magnificent. Dicko, 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 Dicko on the volley. Dicko just scored a goal and a beauty. So anyway, in his, I believe it was in his eulogy for Walker Percy. I think Walker Percy died first, but don't quote me on any of this. All I remember is the line. He said, Shelby Foote said that Walker Percy never saw William Faulkner, the great Southern writer, the only, the Nobel Prize winner from the South, never saw William Faulkner as like a god on a mountain, but instead saw Faulkner as a lion in his path. And that was very influential for me because it made me think, okay, well, obviously, I'm never going to be as good of a writer as Salinger. I'm never going to write a book that's like Catcher in the Rye. But if I see Salinger only as a god on the mountain, I will never, I will never do anything but imitate him, right? I will never do anything but riff off the same notes, but with somewhat less inventiveness and creativity and energy than Salinger was able to bring to it. So instead, is there a way that I can see Salinger as a lion in the path, as someone to be influenced and shaped by, but not someone to defer to, I guess. And that is how I have tried to approach influence in my writing life, as hopefully with some generosity and with a deep feeling of gratitude and a deep knowledge of the debt of gratitude, but at the same time an awareness that, or a feeling that I am trying to do something that is at least somewhat different, that is not just trying to write a sequel to Catcher in the Rye or whatever. And that's the way that I've approached influence, or tried to approach influence, in my writing life. And then I think, but I also think, you know, you're influenced as a writer by everything that you read, literally everything that you read. And that's why it's so important, by the way, to keep reading and to read broadly so that your influences don't all hit one note, which will only make, I think, ultimately your work worse. And less interesting, less available to fewer people. And I don't think my writing has ever been hurt by anything I read, even when I've read books that I strongly disliked. I suspect that I learned something from them. And so I try to use that as a motivation to keep reading, and also to read broadly, because I can only be inspired and influenced by stories I know. And if I don't know a story, if I haven't heard a story, that's, it's only keeping my writing from being better than it might otherwise become. So that's the way I approach it when it comes to books. Now, when it comes to video, it's a lot different. I don't feel nearly as worried about being derivative, partly because I think that the kind of riffing that happens in online video is different from the kind of riffing that happens in books, because, oh wow, it was a big time shot, but it was from outside the box, and that's from where we never score. I think the medium is much newer, so the way influence works is much different, and I also think there's, less. It just feels like there's much more movement in online video than there is in books. Books have been around for hundreds of years. Online video hasn't. And the intimacy with which online video works is so fundamentally different from television, or even from radio, which I think it's more like radio than it's like television, but it's still very different from radio, I think, because there is somebody's face there, and because there isn't the little barrier of entry that radio had in its early days. I think that's part of what makes it magical, is that it could be, and in many cases is, somebody in their basement. And that's why I still film Vlogbrothers videos at home. That's why I still edit them entirely by myself, at least 90% of the time. I edit them entirely by myself. Sometimes I use graphics from Rosianna because she's a very good graphic designer and I'm the worst. But yeah. But that said, Hank and I were extremely derivative, and we didn't feel particularly bad about it. And I don't quite know why that is. I sometimes wonder, Zay Frank, who basically invented most of the conventions of the video blogging genre. If you go back and you watch Zay Frank's videos from 2006, you will see Vlogbrothers in them, but you will also see Philip DeFranco in them. You'll see that everybody got everything from Zay one way or another. And Zay is now the head of BuzzFeed Video and has gone on to be this media magnate. But there was a while there for a few years where, Hank and Philip DeFranco and lots of other video bloggers were, I don't know if you can hear that horn honking, but trust me, it is annoying here. Lots of other video bloggers were all hugely derivative of Zay, and we were all, making a living in this world of online video that Zay had created for us, but he wasn't, or, he was doing other stuff. And I did sometimes feel a lot of guilt about that end of it, about the idea that he was going to not benefit from this thing that he'd created. But in the end, maybe the benefit is in creating it. Maybe the benefit doesn't have to be financial or, whatever your definition of worldly success is. But no, that's a terrible decision, ref. That's horrific. I am deeply offended. What did I do wrong? I was trying to... Oh, my God. It comes down to Shia LaBeouf. This is a must-save situation for the LaBeouf. Oh, he went the wrong way. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, disaster has struck in the form of Papa Diouf. No. So I don't know. I feel weird about how do I turn the trainer off? Oh, no. Meredith. There's been a doubly horrible disaster. Okay, I turned it off, thank God. The last thing I need to be trained in my third to last game of FIFA 16. Hopefully, that is if we qualify for the playoffs, which we can only do if we can only guarantee it if we win this game. So, I have felt bad at times about how much we stole from Zay. And I guess I've felt at times like we stole it instead of being inspired, which is a very different thing. It's very different to be inspired than it is to plagiarize. And we didn't plagiarize in the sense that, I never stole a line from Zay. I never stole an observation from him. But I did steal a lot of visuals from him. I stole the way we edit from him, And I have felt weird about that at times. That said, we were also very public about it. We always sent people back to Zay. We always said when asked that we took all these ideas from Zay, and often we would talk about that unannounced. I've been horribly wronged in what should be a red card situation, but will only be a yellow because this referee is the worst. Meredith, I've got a free kick situation here. Do I go for goal? Yes. I'm going to go for goal. I'm going to go for the goal. It's up and over. Oh, man, he couldn't get it back down. It's just not good enough. Oh, it looks like it's going to be a 0-0 draw. So I think influences, and by the way, Zay isn't the only person who influenced Vlogbrothers, and that, Vlogbrothers continues to be influenced and shaped by the way that YouTube works now. I only have a gaming channel because other people had gaming channels, oh no! Oh, Shia LaBeouf at the last second saves us. I only have a gaming channel because other people had gaming channels before, etc. It's all a big, huge ball of influence. And when you think about making stuff that way, as trying to contribute to the huge ball of influence rather than as trying to be some kind of singular genius, I think making stuff gets a lot more fun, and it also feels a lot more collaborative and less about owning or controlling, which I think is in general the enemy of good work. Thank you for watching. Congratulations to Wimbledon. They were celebrating like it was good news, so I'm going to assume that it maybe was good news. Also, it was a different Diouf who scored that goal, apparently, so I apologize to Diouf. But I'm proud of the boys. They seem happy. Maybe they're happy because we qualified for the playoffs. We'll know more next week. Thank you for watching. Best wishes.